The sound of Erica's heels clicking across our hardwood floor had become the soundtrack to my personal hell. I was crouched in our bedroom closet, industrial strength wood glue in one hand, screwdriver in the other, pretending to fix the sagging shelf that held her collection of designer shoes. 200 pairs minimum. I'd stopped counting after she hit the $1,000 mark in a single month. Every time I see him lately, I wonder if this is really the best I can do. Her voice drifted through the bedroom door, saccharine sweet and sharp as broken glass. I froze, screwdriver halfway to the bracket. She was on the phone, getting ready for another one of her marketing firm's networking events. The kind where she'd spend 3 hours picking an outfit that cost more than my monthly salary at the IT repair shop. I mean, Danny's a good guy, but he's so ordinary. He fixes computers for a living, Sophie. When I tell people what my husband does, I can see them mentally calculating my net worth. My jaw clenched. Ordinary. Right. The ordinary guy who paid for this apartment, who covered her car insurance, who worked overtime so she could afford those shoes I was currently staring at. Louboutins, Manolos, Jimmy Choo's, a rainbow coalition of financial irresponsibility. Greg thinks I deserve better, she continued, and my blood went cold. He says I'm wasting my potential staying with someone who doesn't match my ambition. Greg, her business partner at Morrison Marketing, the guy with the perfectly sculpted jaw and the luxury condo downtown. The same Greg who'd been texting her at all hours, whose name made her face light up like a Christmas tree. I set down the screwdriver and pulled out my phone, opening the Find My iPad app. Erica always left her tablet charging in the kitchen, and she was terrible with passwords. Still used our anniversary date for everything, which was either touching or pathetic, depending on your perspective. I'm thinking about it, Soph. Really thinking about it. Life's too short to settle for ordinary. The iPad unlocked on the first try. I navigated to her messages, my hands surprisingly steady despite the rage building in my chest. There it was, a thread with Greg that went back months. My eyes scanned the recent messages, each one a knife twist in my gut. Greg, can't wait to see you tonight. Room 412 at the Marriott downtown. Erica, already booked my excuse. Danny thinks I'm at a client dinner. Greg, poor bastard has no idea what he's losing. Erica, his loss is your gain. See you at 8. I checked the timestamp. Tonight. She was meeting him tonight in 2 hours, while I sat at home eating leftover pizza and watching Netflix like the ordinary husband I apparently was. I should go, Erica said, her voice getting closer to the bedroom. Danny's doing something with my closet, and I need to get ready. I quickly closed the messages and shoved the phone back in my pocket, grabbing the screwdriver again. The bedroom door opened, and she appeared in the closet doorway, already half-dressed in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than my car payment. How's it going in here? She asked, not really caring about the answer. Almost done, I said, not looking at her. Just tightening the last bracket. She stepped closer, and I caught a whiff of her perfume. The expensive stuff she saved for special occasions. Special occasions like cheating on her ordinary husband. You're the best, Danny. I don't know what I'd do without you. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Probably collapse under the weight of your shoe collection, I muttered. She laughed, that musical sound that used to make my heart skip. Now, it just made me nauseous. Very funny. I'm heading out in a few minutes. Don't wait up. These client dinners can run late. I'm sure they can, I said, finally meeting her eyes. She looked beautiful, radiant even, all dressed up for another man. After she left, trailing a cloud of perfume and lies, I sat on our bed and stared at the closet. 200 pairs of shoes, lined up like soldiers in her personal army of excess, each pair a symbol of everything wrong with our marriage, everything I'd been too blind or too stupid to see. I walked to the kitchen and opened the junk drawer, pulling out the tube of industrial adhesive I'd bought for a repair project months ago. The kind that bonded permanently, the kind that came with warnings about skin contact and ventilation. Back in the closet, I got to work. It took me 45 minutes to glue every single pair of shoes together. Not just sole to sole, that would be amateur hour. I created sculptures, abstract art pieces that would make Picasso weep. Stilettos bonded to sneakers, boots melded with ballet flats, sandals fused into impossible geometric shapes. When I was done, I packed a single duffel bag with my essentials and left my keys on the kitchen counter. The landlady, Mrs. Chen, lived downstairs and had always liked me better than Erica anyway. She'd understand. I walked across the street to Murphy's Coffee, ordered a black coffee, and settled into a window seat with a perfect view of our building. At 11:47 p.m., Erica's car pulled into the parking lot. She looked disheveled, her hair mussed, lipstick gone. The client dinner had clearly been very productive. I watched her climb the stairs to our second-floor apartment, watched the lights come on in our bedroom. Then I waited. The scream that echoed across the street 5 minutes later was worth every penny of that industrial adhesive. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophie, Erica's best friend and partner in crime. Sophie, you really did it. Game on. I smiled and took another sip of coffee. Game on, indeed. 3 days later, I was sleeping on Joey Marconi's couch and working 12-hour shifts at a computer repair shop in the bad part of town. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid cash, and nobody asked questions about why I needed the money fast. Joey had been my best friend since middle school, back when we were both scrawny kids getting picked on by the football team. Now he owned an auto repair shop and had the kind of loyalty you couldn't buy. When I showed up at his door with a duffel bag and a story about glued shoes, he just handed me a beer and pointed to the couch. You always were too good for her, he said, popping open his own beer. Remember senior prom? She made you rent a limo you couldn't afford, then spent the whole night flirting with Brad Peterson. I'd forgotten about that. Funny how memory works. You remember the good times and file away the red flags until you need them later. My phone had been buzzing non-stop since the shoe incident. 17 missed calls from Erica, 43 text messages ranging from apologetic to furious to desperate. I'd read the first few, then switched the phone to silent. Let her wonder where I was, let her panic about the apartment rent and the utilities and all the ordinary things her ordinary husband used to handle. On Thursday morning, I was replacing a motherboard when my phone lit up with a notification from Facebook. Erica had posted a status update, and I was tagged in it. Going through a difficult time right now. Some people can't handle a strong, independent woman. Grateful for friends who see the truth. Moving forward, stronger together. The comments were already rolling in. Sophie led the charge naturally. Sophie, you deserve so much better, babe. Some men just can't handle success. Jennifer Walsh, what happened? Are you okay? Mike Stevens, Danny seemed like such a nice guy. You never know, I guess. I stared at the screen, watching my reputation get shredded in real time. She was painting me as the bad guy, the unstable husband who couldn't handle his wife's success. Classic Erica, always the victim, never the cheater. But two could play the social media game. I opened my laptop and uploaded the photos I'd taken of the shoe sculptures before leaving the apartment. Artistic shots, really. Close-ups of the industrial adhesive work. Wide angles showing the full scope of the installation. I captioned the album, Modern Art, a mixed media exploration of relationship dynamics. Materials, designer shoes, industrial adhesive, and 3 years of marriage. Artist statement available upon request. The response was immediate and brutal. Within an hour, the post had 50 likes and 20 comments, most of them laughing emojis and variations of, "Holy shit, Danny!" My coworker Brad shared it with the caption, "Divorce court is going to be interesting," and suddenly, half the city had seen Erica's $1,000 shoes turned into abstract art. My phone rang. Erica, of course. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she screamed before I could say hello. "Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" "My boss saw those pictures, Danny. My clients saw them." "Funny," I said, leaning back in Joey's recliner. "I was just thinking the same thing about your Facebook post." "That's completely different." "Is it?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like we're both telling our sides of the story. Mine just happens to be more colorful." She was quiet for a long moment, and I could hear her breathing hard. "We need to talk. face to face. I don't think that's a good idea. Danny, please, I know you're angry, but we can work this out. What you saw, it's not what you think. Room 412 at the Marriott downtown, I said quietly. 8 p.m. last Tuesday. Greg thinks you deserve better than your ordinary husband. The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. How did you? Your iPad password is still our anniversary date, Erica. For someone who thinks she's too smart for her ordinary husband, you're remarkably predictable. Danny, I hung up and blocked her number. Friday night, Joey dragged me out to Sullivan's, a dive bar downtown where the beer was cheap and the music was loud. I wasn't really in the mood for socializing, but he insisted I needed to get out of his apartment. You're starting to smell like depression and microwave burritos, he said. Come on, one drink. What's the worst that could happen? Famous last words. We'd been there maybe an hour when I spotted them at a corner table. Erica, Sophie, and 3 other women from her office, all dressed like they were heading to a much nicer establishment. They hadn't seen me yet, but I could hear Erica's voice carrying over the music. He's having some kind of breakdown, she was saying. Destroyed thousands of dollars worth of my property, then disappeared. I'm honestly worried about what he might do next. Sophie nodded sympathetically. Have you thought about getting a restraining order? My lawyer mentioned it. Said I might need protection if he escalates. I felt Joey's hand on my shoulder. Let's go, man. They're not worth it. But I was already walking toward their table. The conversation stopped as I approached, 5 pairs of eyes turning to stare at me like I was a wild animal that had wandered into their habitat. Ladies, I said pleasantly, mind if I join you? Danny. Erica's voice was tight, controlled. What are you doing here? Having a drink with my friend, same as you, I assume. I pulled out an empty chair and sat down uninvited. Though I have to say, for someone who's worried about my mental state, you don't look very concerned. Sophie leaned forward, her expression hostile. You need to leave. Now. Actually, Sophie, I was hoping to talk to you. I've been thinking about our conversation the other day. Erica shot her friend a warning look. What conversation? The one where Sophie texted me, game on after the shoe incident. Interesting choice of words, don't you think? Almost like she knew what was coming. The table went quiet. Sophie's face had gone pale, and she was staring at her drink like it held the secrets of the universe. I don't know what you're talking about, she said finally. Sure you do. You've been pushing Erica toward Greg for months, haven't you? Telling her she deserves better, that she's wasting her potential, really committed to the role of supportive best friend. Erica was looking between Sophie and me, confusion replacing anger in her expression. Sophie, what is he talking about? He's delusional, Sophie said quickly. You said yourself he's having a breakdown. I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshot I'd taken of Sophie's text. Game on, I read aloud. Sent at 11:52 p.m. last Tuesday, about 5 minutes after you discovered my art installation. Funny thing to say to someone who's supposedly having a mental breakdown, don't you think? The other women at the table were looking uncomfortable, sensing drama they didn't want to be part of. One by one, they made excuses and left, until it was just me, Erica, and Sophie. You want to tell her, or should I? I asked Sophie. Tell me what? Erica's voice was sharp now, the confusion turning to suspicion. Sophie stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. Sit down, Erica commanded, and something in her tone made Sophie freeze. Tell me what, Danny? I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the moment. Ask her about the time I supposedly fired her from the IT company. Ask her how long she's been planning this little revenge fantasy. Erica turned to Sophie, her eyes narrowing. You told me Danny worked at an IT company, not that you did. It's complicated, Sophie said weakly. Uncomplicated. Sophie sat back down, her hands shaking slightly. Fine. Yes, I used to work at TechFlow Solutions. Yes, Danny was there too. But I wasn't fired. I was laid off. Budget cuts. But you blamed me anyway, I said. Told everyone I'd sabotaged your projects, spread rumors about your work ethic, even convinced yourself it was true. You could have helped me, Sophie snapped. You had connections, influence, but you just watched me struggle. I was an entry-level tech support guy making $12 an hour, I said. What influence did you think I had? Erica was staring at her best friend like she'd never seen her before. How long have you been lying to me? I wasn't lying. I was protecting you from making the same mistake I did, trusting Danny to care about anyone but himself. So you introduced her to Greg, I continued. Encouraged the affair. Pushed her toward destroying our marriage because you wanted revenge on me. That's not... Sophie started, then stopped. The fight went out of her all at once. You ruined my life. No, I said quietly. You ruined your own life. And now you've ruined hers too. I stood up and tossed a 20 on the table. Enjoy the rest of your evening, ladies. Something tells me you have a lot to discuss. As I walked away, I could hear them starting to argue, Erica's voice rising in anger and betrayal. Joey was waiting by the bar, grinning. That, he said, was beautiful. We're just getting started, I told him. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in psychological warfare. I'd learned a lot about Erica during our marriage, her insecurities, her pressure points, the things that kept her awake at night. Now, I had the motivation to use that knowledge. It started small. I created a fake Instagram account and started following Greg's gym buddies, his coworkers, his ex-girlfriends. Social media stalking was an art form, and I'd always been good with computers. Within days, I had a complete picture of his life, his routines, his weaknesses. Greg was vain, obsessively so. He posted gym selfies twice a day, shared articles about men's fashion, and had strong opinions about protein powder brands. His entire identity was built around being the alpha male, the successful businessman who drove a BMW and wore $1,000 suits. So, I attacked his image. First, I signed him up for a senior citizens dance class at the community center using his work email. The confirmation went to his entire office contact list. Apparently, he had his email set to auto-forward to his assistant. By Monday morning, half of Morrison Marketing was asking Greg about his newfound passion for ballroom dancing. Then I got creative with his gym membership. A few phone calls, a fake email account. And suddenly Greg was registered for the Gentle Yoga for Beginners class that met every Tuesday at 6 a.m. The same time he usually did his heavy lifting routine. The instructor was a 70-year-old woman named Gladys, who didn't take kindly to no-shows. But the real masterpiece was the BMW. I'd been watching Greg's routine for a week, and he was predictable as clockwork. Every morning at 7:30, he'd emerge from his luxury condo building, coffee in hand, and spend 5 minutes admiring his car before driving to work. The BMW was his pride and joy, a silver 3 Series that he washed every weekend and parked in the same spot every night. On Thursday morning, I was waiting in the parking garage when he came down. I'd dressed like a maintenance worker. Coveralls, tool belt, clipboard. People never questioned someone who looked like they belonged. "Excuse me," I called out as he approached his car. "Building management. We've had reports of a gas leak in this section. I need to check your vehicle." Greg looked annoyed, but not suspicious. "How long will this take? I have a meeting at 8. "Just a few minutes, sir. Safety first, you know." He handed me his keys and stepped back, checking his phone while I popped the hood. The sugar in the gas tank thing was a myth. It wouldn't actually damage the engine. But disconnecting a few key wires and loosening the battery terminals, that would leave him stranded without causing permanent damage. "Everything looks good," so I said, handing back his keys. "Thanks for your patience." "No problem," he said, already climbing into the driver's seat. I was halfway across the parking garage when I heard the engine turn over once, twice, then nothing. Greg tried again and again. By the 4th attempt, he was swearing loud enough to echo off the concrete walls. I took the stairs up to the street level and walked to the coffee shop across from Morrison Marketing. At 8:15, I watched Greg arrive in an Uber, his perfect hair disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled from the stress. He looked like a man whose carefully constructed image was starting to crack. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I know what you're doing. Stop, or I'll make you stop." Greg had found my number somehow. Probably got it from Erica. I typed back quickly. "Prove it." The response came immediately. "Meet me at Sullivan's tonight. 9 p.m. Time to settle this like men." I stared at the message, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to ignore him, to keep playing the long game. But another part of me, the part that had been called ordinary and inadequate and not good enough, Wanted the confrontation. See you there, I replied. Sullivan's was crowded for a Thursday night, but I spotted Greg immediately. He was sitting at the bar, still in his work clothes, nursing what looked like his third or fourth whiskey. He'd aged in the past month, stress lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. I ordered a beer and took the stool next to him. You look like hell, I said conversationally. He turned to face me and I could see the anger simmering behind his eyes. You think you're clever, don't you? I think I'm effective. Destroying my car, embarrassing me at work. What's the point, Danny? Erica's already left you. You lost. I took a long drink of beer, considering my words carefully. And see, that's where you're wrong, Greg. I didn't lose anything. I discovered what I was married to and I walked away. You, on the other hand, I gestured at his disheveled appearance. You look like a man who's in over his head. She loves me. She loves the idea of you, the successful businessman, the guy with the fancy car and the downtown condo. But what happens when that image starts to crumble? When you're just another middle-aged man with commitment issues and a drinking problem? His hand tightened around his glass. You don't know anything about me. I know you've been married twice before. I know you're 3 months behind on your condo fees. I know your last girlfriend left you for your business partner. I smiled at his shocked expression. Social media is a wonderful thing, Greg. People share so much personal information without realizing it. You're insane. I'm thorough. There's a difference. He stood up abruptly, swaying slightly. The whiskey had hit him harder than he'd expected. This ends now. Stay away from me. Stay away from Erica, or I'll... You'll what? I interrupted. Call the police? Tell them what exactly? That someone signed you up for dance classes? That your car broke down? That you're being outmaneuvered by an ordinary IT guy? Greg's face flushed red. You son of a bitch. He swung at me, a wild, drunken haymaker that I saw coming from a mile away. I leaned back, and his fist connected with nothing but air. The momentum carried him forward, and he stumbled into a table full of college kids. The bar went quiet for a moment, everyone staring at the well-dressed man picking himself up off the floor. Then the whispers started. The phones came out, and I knew that by tomorrow morning, half the city would have seen a video of Greg's spectacular failure. You should go home, I said quietly. Sleep it off. Maybe think about anger management classes. I hear the community center has some excellent programs. He glared at me with pure hatred, but he was smart enough not to try again. As he stumbled toward the exit, I heard someone behind me laugh. Damn, Danny, that was cold. I turned to see Joey raising his beer in salute. How long have you been here? Long enough to get it all on video, he said, holding up his phone. This is going straight to Facebook. Don't, I said, not yet. Why not? Because we're not done, and I want them to think they still have a chance to win. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, hand-delivered to Joey's apartment by a courier service. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering, the kind of formal presentation that screamed expensive. Morrison Marketing cordially invites you to join us for Erica Walsh's farewell celebration. Friday, June 15th, 7 p.m., Skyline Rooftop Lounge. I stared at the invitation, turning it over in my hands. Erica had kept her maiden name for work, a detail that had always bothered me more than I'd admitted. Now it felt like prophecy. You're not seriously thinking of going, Joey said, reading over my shoulder. Oh, I'm definitely going. Question is whether I'm going as a guest or as the entertainment. I'd been planning this moment for weeks, ever since I'd discovered the full scope of Sophie's manipulation. The confrontation at Sullivan's had been satisfying, but it was just the opening act. This was the finale, the moment when all the pieces would come together. The past month had been busy. I'd been working double shifts at the computer repair shop, saving every penny I could. Not for lawyers or alimony. I'd checked, and Massachusetts was a no-fault divorce state. The apartment lease was in both our names, but I'd paid the deposits and could prove it. The car was mine, bought before we were married. Erica could keep her shoes, what was left of them. No, the money was for something much more important, something that would make this night unforgettable. I spent Friday afternoon getting ready. Haircut from Joey's barber, a new shirt that actually fit properly, even splurged on decent shoes. If I was going to crash Erica's farewell party, I was going to look good doing it. The Skyline Rooftop Lounge was exactly the kind of place Erica loved. Trendy, expensive, with a view of the city skyline and a dress code that kept out the ordinary people. I took the elevator to the 20th floor, my laptop bag slung over my shoulder, feeling calmer than I had in weeks. The party was in full swing when I arrived. Maybe 40 people, mostly from Morrison Marketing, plus some of Erica's college friends, and a few faces I didn't recognize. Erica was holding court near the bar, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. She looked radiant, confident, like a woman who had successfully reinvented herself. She spotted me almost immediately, her smile faltering for just a moment before she recovered. I gave her a small wave and headed for the bar, ordering a whiskey and settling in to watch the show. Danny? I turned to see Jennifer Walsh, one of Erica's co-workers. We'd met at a few company parties over the years, and she'd always been friendly enough. Hi, Jen. Nice party. I wasn't sure you'd come, given everything that's happened. Wouldn't miss it for the world. She looked uncomfortable, glancing around like she was afraid someone might see her talking to me. How are you holding up? Better than expected, actually. Turns out, divorce can be liberating. Before she could respond, the lights dimmed and someone tapped a microphone at the front of the room. Richard Morrison, the company's founder, was preparing to give a speech. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here tonight. As most of you know, we're here to celebrate Erica Walsh, who has decided to pursue new opportunities after 3 wonderful years with our company. Polite applause. I noticed Greg standing near the back of the room, looking nervous. He kept checking his phone like he was expecting bad news. Erica has been a valued member of our team, Morrison continued, and while we're sorry to see her go, we wish her all the best in her future endeavors. More applause. Erica stepped forward to accept the microphone, her smile bright and practiced. Thank you, Richard. Thank you all. This company has been like a family to me, and leaving is one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. But sometimes we have to take risks, make changes, pursue our dreams. She paused, her eyes finding mine across the room. I've learned a lot about myself over the past few months, about what I want, what I deserve, what I'm willing to fight for. I raised my glass in a mock toast, and her smile flickered again. Change is never easy, she continued. Sometimes it means leaving behind people who don't understand your vision, your potential. Sometimes it means disappointing people who want to keep you small, ordinary. That was my cue. I stood up and started a slow clap, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. Every head in the room turned to stare at me. Beautifully said, Erica. Really inspiring. Danny, she said into the microphone, her voice tight, what are you doing here? Celebrating your new beginning, of course. Though I have to say, I'm a little confused about the timeline. I walked toward the front of the room, pulling my laptop out of the bag. See, according to your speech, you've spent the past few months discovering what you want, what you deserve. But according to these, I opened the laptop and connected it to the room's projection system. The first image that appeared on the wall was a screenshot of Erica's text messages with Greg, dated 6 months ago. You've been pursuing your dreams for quite a bit longer than that. The room erupted in whispers and gasps. Erica's face had gone white, and she was staring at the screen in horror. Danny, stop, she said into the microphone, but her voice was shaking now. Oh, but we're just getting started, I said, clicking to the next slide. This is my personal favorite. Greg thinks you deserve better than your ordinary husband. Such a supportive business partner. Greg was pushing through the crowd, trying to reach the laptop, but Joey had appeared from somewhere and blocked his path. My best friend grinned and shook his head. Now this next part gets really interesting, I continued, clicking through more screenshots. Because it turns out this whole affair was orchestrated by someone you all know and trust. Sophie's face appeared on the screen, a photo I'd pulled from her Facebook page. Then came the screenshots of our text conversation, including her game on message. Sophie Chen, ladies and gentlemen, Erica's best friend and confidant. Also the woman who's been manipulating this entire situation as part of an elaborate revenge scheme against me. The room was dead silent now, everyone staring at the screen in shock. Sophie was nowhere to be seen. She'd apparently decided not to attend the party. You see, Sophie used to work with me at a tech company. She was laid off during budget cuts and decided it was my fault. So she spent 2 years worming her way into Erica's life, earning her trust, learning her insecurities. Then, she introduced her to Greg and started planting seeds. I clicked to the next slide, which showed a timeline of Sophie's manipulation. Text messages encouraging Erica to cheat, social media posts designed to make her feel inadequate, even restaurant recommendations for romantic spots where she could meet Greg. The beautiful thing about this plan, I continued, is that Sophie didn't care if it destroyed Erica's life too. She just wanted to hurt me, and she was willing to sacrifice anyone to do it. Erica had dropped the microphone, and it rolled across the floor with a screech of feedback. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks, her perfect image crumbling in real time. But here's the thing Sophie didn't count on, I said, closing the laptop. I'm not ordinary. I'm not the weak, passive husband she thought she was destroying. I'm the guy who figured out her entire scheme, documented every lie, and saved it all for the perfect moment. I looked around the room, meeting the eyes of Erica's coworkers, her friends, her family. So, congratulations, Erica, on your new beginning. I hope it's everything you deserve. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Then, someone near the back started clapping, slow and deliberate. Others joined in, but it wasn't the supportive applause from earlier. This was something else entirely. The sound of a reputation being destroyed, a life being dismantled in public. Erica turned and ran, pushing through the crowd toward the elevators. Greg followed, but not before shooting me a look of pure hatred. The party was over, people streaming toward the exits, whispering and checking their phones. I packed up my laptop and headed for the bar, ordering another whiskey. Richard Morrison appeared beside me, his expression unreadable. That was quite a show, he said. I thought so. You know, we might have an opening in our IT department. Someone with your attention to detail could be valuable. I smiled and raised my glass. Thanks, but I think I'm done with this crowd. Too much drama for an ordinary guy like me. As I walked toward the elevator, I pulled out my phone and sent one final text to Sophie's number. Game over, you lose. The elevator doors closed, and I descended back to street level, back to my ordinary life. But for the first time in months, ordinary felt pretty damn good.